Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Let's turn to the latest purported scandal involving Justice Samuel Alito. Courtesy, of course, of the New York Times, it says that another provocative flag, Bill, was flown at a house owned by Samuel Alito. This was a New Jersey vacation home, and the flag, a white flag with a pine tree on it and the words "Appeal to Heaven." And Bill, the argument that is being made by this article and some of the judicial experts is that because some people brought this flag to the Capitol riot on January 6th, that this then presents a conflict and maybe even should prompt Justice Alito to recuse on any cases involving January 6th. What say you?
Well, this is about, as you say, the whole enterprise is designed to link Sam Alito or his family to January 6th as people who justified it and so forth, and therefore discredit him and force him to recuse himself from cases. It probably dates to the justices authoring the Dobbs opinion that overturned Roe versus Wade. They just hate him. They want to discredit him, and they're looking at flags. I mean, I myself, you're in the same town, Kyle. You know, I have flown provocative flags on my property. I have had a Notre Dame flag on game day, and I know it's highly offensive to the Michigan fans, but I don't think I would need to recuse myself from any cases if I were a judge for flying that highly provocative flag.
The pine tree flag, as it is called, goes back to the Revolutionary War. The wording on it, "Appeal to Heaven," is reportedly from a phrase from John Locke, who says that when the people's rights are being denied, if they have no appeal on earth, then they have a liberty to appeal to heaven, which is what General George Washington and the Continental Army were doing back in the Revolutionary War. And most Americans celebrate that. This is a historical flag, Elliot, from the Revolution. And maybe it's true that it is adopted by other people for other reasons, but I don't think that they get a veto on what the flag means. And in some ways, this reminds me of the purported controversy over the Gadsden flag. Similarly, you've heard arguments about that. This is the yellow flag with the coiled rattlesnake and the phrase, "Don't tread on me." And in recent years, there have been efforts to say that that is exclusively a far-right emblem. But there are a lot of people who like the Gadsden flag for all sorts of reasons, including that it's interesting historically. It has a message of liberty and individualism and defiance toward overbearing authorities that is attractive. And one way that a symbol can become marginalized is if people who are mainstream and who like it give up on it. And they say, I'm not going to fly the Gadsden flag anymore because somebody at a newspaper said that it's a right-wing emblem.
I think that's exactly right. The problem is there are a lot of people who have given up on the symbols of the American founding. Is that not right? I mean, that, in my view, was the New York Times' 1619 Project, saying that not only was there slavery, but slavery is the essence of America. And therefore, you tell them John Locke said it. They say John Locke was from a long time ago. He was a racist too, you know? How does that help? So the fact that John Locke's philosophy was instrumental in the founding of a nation that has provided more liberty to more people than any other, they couldn't be bothered with that. So I think you're right. It's important to stand up for core American symbols and core American history. And so this is larger than one Supreme Court justice's recusal. Although that's very important, too. I wouldn't give up on either.
Bill, it is amazing, though, the extent to which this is now being folded in to the narrative about a crisis of confidence in the Supreme Court. Here is a press release from Senator Dick Durbin, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He calls this appeal to heaven flag yet another example of apparent ethical misconduct by a sitting justice, and it adds to the court's ongoing ethical crisis. He calls on Justice Alito to recuse himself from cases related to January 6th and the 2020 election. But Bill, as we've discussed, I think, many times before, the Supreme Court has pretty narrow rules for when a justice should recuse. And remember, the Supreme Court does not weigh in on the January 6th riot or anything like that in a general way. What the Supreme Court does is decide legal questions. And so there may be a rioter who comes up and says, I was accused of obstructing an official proceeding, and the history, the way this law has been interpreted and the way this law has been applied by prosecutors before me, it doesn't apply to my conduct. And that is a specific legal question. And it's also important, I think, to keep in mind that there are only 9 Supreme Court justices. So unlike in the lower courts, if one of them steps aside, that's a vote down for one or other of the parties. It is not like the lower courts where there are extras on the sides that you can bring in to fill the role.
Yeah, I agree with you. What you just said is common sense in most people. But you also noted that the left operates with narratives. Elliot mentioned the 1619 Project, which is designed to relocate the American founding from 1776 and the Declaration to 1619 and the arrival of slavery. This is a narrative they're trying to build about Sam Alito to discredit him. They know it's not going to stop him from ruling, but from now on, every sentence about Alito in a contested ruling is going to say, Justice Samuel Alito, who is embroiled in controversy over flying right-wing symbols at his house, ruled in favor of this or something. It's designed to discredit. I think I read a piece, I think it was Dan McLaughlin in National Review, pointed out that the link between January 6th and the flag flying upside down, which is what the Times was trying to prove, was based largely on a PhD student, somewhere. Narratives are not fact-based. They just have any fact, however small, and they blow it up into something larger. This is just an effort to discredit Sam Alito. I would like if these people could be as worried as the guy who came to Brett Kavanaugh's house to kill him and the obscene protests around the justices' houses. Somehow there's no talk about that.
Thank you, Bill and Elliot. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button. And we'll be back next week with another edition of Potomac Watch.